Hey, what's going on, guys? Nice to catch up with you again. So, for 2022, we actually happen to know who our opponents are going to be, both for all of the home and away games, essentially. So, figured I'd share this with you guys real quick. Excuse me. Prior to that, though, it's also really interesting, at least for those that are, older-ish like I am. The landscape of the entire NFL is changing in terms of the players, especially at the premium, quarterback position. The landscape of the NFL is completely changing. Seeing Brady, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, pretty much dominate the playoffs. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, etc. Seeing those kind of players dominate, year after year is starting to rapidly change. Out of that list itself, we know both the Mannings are out. Roethlisberger's looking like he's going to end up having his last season of his career. There's a multitude of other names that we can dive into, but let's go ahead and touch base on some of these names in terms of the teams we'll be playing in 2022. So we know we have our normal division games, Bills, Dolphins, rivals. But for our home games, we have the Bengals. So we're talking about Joe Burrow. We just seen him hang, 500 plus yard offensive games. I believe he's done it at least twice this season already, and then numerous other games where he's thrown 400, multiple touchdowns. Jamar Chase looks like a monster. That additional coverage is, allowing T. Higgins to excel, and Joe Mixon has had a lot of great games himself. Covering the ground game, and he's a threat through the air a little bit there as well too. We have the Ravens, former MVP with Lamar Jackson. We expect that their rushing attack will get back on track, as they get players healthy again. Sad to see J.K. Dobbins go down and then Ingram goes down, and they ended up trying to pull and pull and pull from, free agency. But still, historically, very good defenses, offensively, kind of the most athletically talented collection of the bunch that they've had in some time. Marquise Brown out there, and we'll see what other kind of pieces they want to add. Very good offensive line as well. Jaguars, we win the first matchup against Trevor Lawrence, but key off seasons for both teams. I would say our arrow is pointing up, whereas so Trevor Lawrence is kind of swinging in a slanted position. This is mostly due to franchise dysfunction. We haven't seen it on our own end in the same fashion that the Jaguars themselves are getting it. So the whole Urban Meyer situation, midseason firings are almost never good whatsoever, and I mean that from the standpoint that you almost never see an immediate uptick in like production or wins or anything like that during the season. But tough look for him. Well, we'll see if they can turn around immediately. I don't even have, any kind of idea in terms of what head coach they may be looking at. I think it would still be a very smart move to consider I can't even remember his name anymore, but the boy from the Chiefs, or if the ball still ends up trying to look like an option for him. Either way, though, I digress. We have the Lions. Jared Goff over there, who's quietly actually had a pretty solid season, all things considered. I don't know what the Jaguars, preseason predictions were necessarily looking like, but I don't think it was kind of a playoff or bust mandate. Especially, first year head coach and all the other things. Very lacking in the weapons department, which we should be very familiar with. But they do have the Amon St. Ra, who looks like he's kind of going to be the next stalwart piece on offense there for them. But it'll be fun still. Pretty youngish quarterback. He's went to the Super Bowl. He's played in playoffs more often than not for his career so far. So a lot of things to look forward to there potentially with them too if they can hit in the draft. And then we have the Bears for the final, not final home game, but final team for our slate of home games. And that's Justin Fields. And, he's more athletic than football player at the moment, I would say, with the adjustment that's coming in. But still, he's looked very good in few spurts. When they've kind of catered the game plan around allowing him to use his legs, escape a little bit more, especially with that leaky offensive line over there. But still, kind of having pieces around him that he could lean on in a pinch. So, having Allen Robinson over there definitely never hurts when you're a young rookie and you need somebody to kind of rely on in, clutch moments of time. For our slate of away games, we have the Steelers. For the first time, we probably won't see Roethlisberger lining up to start and be out there on the field, which leaves huge question marks around what that's going to look like for them moving forward. They've been trying to build a contingency plan for years. They just haven't necessarily hit on a pick that would, blow them out of the water. So, maybe Mason Rudolph ends up having, a transformational offseason for himself, and can make a case. Otherwise, they'll probably be needing to go through the draft of free agency. Um, Aside from that, though, it'll still be very interesting. Very stout defense. We know that they have essentially always been well coached. Bane of my existence. The very few times that we had productive teams that were winning, and it would, not just from a stat perspective, it's either been the Colts, the Patriots, or the Steelers that have kind of ended that. But nonetheless, still very interesting offseason for them. We have the Browns, kind of most enigmatic of the group. Um, they've been destined for playoffs, and even so much so a Super Bowl or bust for a couple seasons now, and they haven't been able to pull it off. So is it expectations? Is it the unlucky spurts of injuries that have hit them, or is it just Baker Mayfield maybe not living up to essentially his draft slot? So you never know what you're going to get. The Broncos can thrash somebody on any given day if the offense and defense are clicking on all cylinders, which is a little cliche to say because I feel like you can say that about any team, but they literally had all the pieces in place to dominate essentially anybody on a day-to-day basis. And that goes for the top teams as well if we're talking about just looking at what's there on paper. But still, very, very strong pieces. They've had a lot of opportunities to add to the defense. They already had a Myles Garrett in place and almost said Demario Davis, but they've had a Myles Garrett in place. They picked up the Grant Delpits, etc. that are in there that could be developed and, shine a light or continue to shine a light and kind of extend that shelf life for what a playoff window looks like for them. We have the Broncos. This might be, aside from like the Steelers who are kind of in quarterback purgatory, this might be the one team that is, kind of just falling down flat on their face. We have no idea what's been happening with that offense. It looks like Locke might not be the player they were hoping when he was selected. So, yet another quarterback to add to the carousel over there in Denver. Otherwise, they had a very good rushing attack, I would say. Javonte Williams, if I'm remembering the name correctly, looks like he's been a very, very good addition for them in a rushing attack. If they can either find the right quarterback or the right play caller, they might be able to make use more so of the games we've seen where they've ran the ball and they've done the play action that's been so very effective for them. But then they got a lot of pieces in the wide receiver core and, elsewhere. The Packers, everything's going to pretty much depend on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. I want to say I see him sticking it out because, you don't imagine, especially with how outspoken Rodgers is and opinionated he is. I don't see him wanting to just really pick up and go to another city. And he has said in recent interviews that he feels like some of the things that he's spoken to the franchise about in terms of what he was looking for, communication breakdowns, just having more input into how the team is being, developed. Different things of that nature. Maybe they've done enough to keep him, maybe not. In either case, he could be a potential trade destination. And, immediately just kind of taking a look at the list, and it's a little bit of convenience and circumstance at the same time. But if we move into the Seahawks, both those quarterbacks have ran into a few issues with the franchise in terms of maybe not getting across their point or getting some of those less tangible items that they really want, that they've seen from maybe the Tom Brady's of the world, the Peyton Mannings, and feeling like they haven't gotten the same respect, even though they've delivered, to the franchise over and over again. Uh, Maybe they jump ship. You can find a much worse situation than diving over there into the Steelers. The franchise is well run, well oiled. They tend to hit in the draft more often than not, and they're going to find themselves in the playoffs more often than not. So you can essentially slide right in over there if you're an Aaron Rodgers or you're a Russell Wilson, and probably find immediate success on your way to a ring, even, in fact, which will kind of be a win-win for both, assuming they don't have to give up, the whole cupboard. But those are all the teams, essentially home and away, which I believe I got courtesy of X Factor and another site I've seen online. I'd have to find again, but very, very interesting stuff. Really excited to see, because we're seeing a whole slate of young quarterbacks, teams on the rise. Very few teams that'll be up in the air in terms of not really knowing which way they might be in terms of being a strong or weak team. So ultimately, very, very excited for next season, especially with the development of what our own team is going to look like. Even if you take a look at this, the Bengals, I believe, just won their division. The Ravens are normally at the top of their division, or at least fighting between one or two. Injury bug bit them. Trevor Lawrence, hopefully you'd like to see that team continue to progress. Jared Goff, maybe they add some more pieces around him after seeing how well he's done with the very minimal slate of weapons, and the terrible defense that he has behind him. Justin Fields, essentially, throw all the rookies into that same category. Steelers, I got a feeling they really do try to maybe trade for somebody. This isn't necessarily the strongest quarterback draft from what we've seen. Always could change, but still. The Browns, again, I'm not going to hold my breath with them. We don't know who shows up until game day. The Broncos, they're going to have to hope for the best. And then we have the Packers, pending whatever happens with Rodgers, and the Seahawks, pending whatever happens with Wilson. But both those teams, historically, because they've had their quarterbacks, and they are who they are, have been near the upper echelon. So we're talking about a entire slate of strong quarterbacks on the rise, teams that are playoff destined or consistently in the playoffs, etc. So, fingers crossed. I think we're on the right track ourselves, though, to be able to be in that discussion of saying, this is a playoff bound team. And we'll see how, we actually respond to that offseason additions, etc. But let me know who you guys are excited about facing, or what do you feel about the teams that should be on our schedule for 2022. Other than that, I'll catch you guys again. Peace.